Daniel, you've spent years helping people become better investors. What made you realize your next book needed to be less about investing and more about living?
Yeah, Andy, I had written two books previously, which were, to your point, all about making great decisions with your money, the planning side, the asset management side. And I really came across a statistic that kind of rocked me. When this country was founded, we, of course, just celebrated 250 years of America. But when this country was founded, 85% of the world was living in poverty. So that would be $2 or less per day. So effectively, everyone everywhere was poor. Now that number is about 9%. So over the past 200 plus years, we have had this explosion of equality and prosperity that has been incredible, an incredible boon to the world. But in the Western world, in the U.S. in particular, over that time, we've become more depressed, more anxious, more lonely, more despondent. And so I really wanted to begin to answer the question, how have we been able to experience such an increase in material wealth, but we haven't been able to translate that to our happiness or our well-being?
That's an excellent point. I mean, we always hear about the statistics that the internet connects us all, but yet, even with social media and all these tools, people feel more and more isolated. In The Soul of Wealth, you write that money is an emotional story, not an engineering equation.
Hmm.
Why do so many successful people hit every financial benchmark on paper and yet feel like something's still missing?
Yeah, so to your point, in a previous book, I did some research which I have never stopped thinking about, which effectively says that money is the most emotional thing we deal with, right? So it looked at activation in the brain. It studied fMRI studies that showed people different stimuli, things like sex and death and all the things you can't talk about, religion, politics, all the things you can't talk about in polite company. And it measured the excitatory power in their brain. And one of the things that happened was that the most excitatory power happened when money was the stimulus, was the point of conversation. So money is this inherently emotional, psychological thing, but people try to treat it like physics. People try to treat it like an engineering problem. And as long as you're treating it like that, and not the emotional, spiritual, psychological reality that it is, you're always going to come up short. So people just think, if I have money, if I get more money, things will just get better. And they're really sort of optimizing for the wrong things.
You've admitted that you've moved your definition of enough more than once. Why is "I'll be happy when" such a dangerous story that even successful people tell themselves?
So what happens is if we look at the evolutionary roots of enough, right? For most of human history, we haven't really been able to hoard and accumulate wealth the way that we can today. For the vast majority of human history, we were struggling to get enough calories, struggling to have enough to kind of get by. And this last, few moments in human history are the only time when we've ever been able to really stockpile wealth. So we are, in a very real sense, wired to keep pushing and keep grinding and going for more, because for our forebears, they needed to do that to survive. Well, you and I, though, can get to a place where we have enough, but we're not wired for enough. And again, we're sort of optimizing for the wrong things. I found in my research that there's really, I call it the three B's. These are things that actually sate us. They can be enough, and it's believing, belonging, and becoming. So believing would be your truth, your moral framework. Belonging would be the relationships that matter, and becoming would be self-improvement or self-betterment. So when people spend money on these three things, right, improving relationships, relationships, improving the self, or making the world a better place in a way that's consistent with our moral framework. That's the kind of spending that can sate us and that can give us real satisfaction. But most people buy a Porsche or a big house, and it doesn't tend to do the job.
Daniel, do you have thoughts on what separates the advisors who simply help clients to build wealth from those who genuinely help clients build more meaningful lives?
So, I think an awareness of, say, the three things that I just talked about is a start. But, I caught the last 15 or 20 minutes of your conversation with the gentleman before, a number of whom are good friends of mine. And, when we look at the future of advice, right, I'm in enthusiastic agreement with them that the future is a hybrid, like this centaur future. And if you look at what machines do well versus what mankind does well, um, the AI is going to be good at things that are rote. It's going to be good at things like rebalancing or asset selection or product selection and things like that. And that's great because it's going to free the advisor of the future up to do the things that we know from the research add the most value, which is behavioral coaching, helping the client understand themselves and helping the client make decisions that contribute to a life of meaning and purpose. And so I'm really excited about the future of advice because I think advisors are going to be freed up from some of the lower quality things that they have to do today and are going to be free to spend more time helping people be thoughtful, intentional, and curate lives of meaning rather than just trying to stack higher stacks of dollar bills.
I love the positive outlook that AI and technology can really help us to spend our time and focus more time on the right things. Let's move on, and we're going to talk about behavioral coaching and behavioral judo in segment 2.